It's taking place particularly in the Western world, where we've been indoctrinated with governments that are, they're not control governments themselves. They're vehicles for control of land. I agree entirely with what you just said. It's very, very well summarized. But I think we need to go further than that and look at the people who are co-opting the state on their behalf. It's not the state, it's not the governments of states and countries that are doing this. It is the powers that be behind the governments that are controlling the governments. That's the major banks, the major corporations of this planet at the moment. BlackRock, Vanguard, and their ultimate owners, the few small number of families that control them. The Federal Reserve Bank, as Ron Paul says, former Senator Ron Paul says, neither has reserves nor is it federal. And so what we've seen is a privately owned institution, the United States Federal Reserve Bank, masquerading, parading itself as a state instrument. It's not. It's a privately owned instrument. And what we see is these major banks, these major bankers controlling governments around the world. And they are the ones who are ultimately pulling the strings. And Trudeau's government in Canada is just a puppet. The Morrison-Albanese government in this country is just a puppet. They're following the instructions of the United Nations World Health Organization, for example, of the United Nations, of the World Economic Forum. They're following their policies. They have adopted their policies. Our country is now crippled with energy problems because of these policies from the United Nations and the World Economic Forum. The whole of the COVID response was directed, aimed at, designed to control people. The COVID management has been a complete balls up. It has been completely mismanaged. That's because the intent was never to manage the virus. The intent was to use the virus to control people. So it's very important to, while acknowledging your statement of being entirely accurate, is to go further than that. Look at the people who are controlling the states and federal governments. In this country, Vlad, we've had so-called liberal national people in government in the federal sphere until recently on the supposed right of politics, on the supposed freedom side. It's complete rubbish. They're not. We've had people on the labor side, the socialist side, in control at the state level. Both have worked hand in hand together to control people. It's no longer liberal versus labor. That's complete bullshit. It is labor and liberal controlled by the globalist predators working through the United Nations and the World Economic Forum. That's who we're up against. And it is a worldwide sweep. Fortunately, we see people in Africa and Asia in particular not ready to bow down to this. Most people in the West have given up. But we can still come back. And it's very important to understand the problem so that we can unite people against that cause, against the cause of the problem, and solve this problem, because we have to solve it. Otherwise, we're looking at enormous control, unheard of in the whole of human history. And it will be done in a way that's very subtle, very demeaning, very inhuman. And it'll be done in a way that's not directly seen, unlike in the past where we've had the guns and tanks suppressing people. This will be done without people really understanding it, electronically and through laws, so-called laws. So we've got to be very, very careful to understand the real source of this control.